No one remembers the first time the whisper was heard. It drifted through the classified corridors of the NSA like a ghost in a concrete tomb. An echo of a future that could not, must not be allowed to exist. Deep in a subterranean vault beneath Fort Meade, an encrypted file appeared without traceable origin. Its title was as mundane as it was ominous. Project Ancient Arrow. At first, analysts dismissed it as a relic, perhaps a Cold War psyop, an old Soviet disinformation drop. But when the cryptographers opened the file, they found no code they could break, no language they could name. The glyphs shifted subtly on the screen, like the living veins of an alien script. Some claimed they heard a hum behind their eyes as they read, a resonance deep in the bones. Within days, the first analyst vanished. He left behind a single message scratched into his desk. They were here before us. They will be here after. The director convened a blackroom council at 3 a.m. Only 6 men and women knew what was to be discussed. All swore blood oaths to the agency's inner sanctum. But secrets have a way of fermenting, of swelling until they rupture the walls built to contain them. Within weeks, rumors spread of a hidden excavation site in the American Southwest, coordinates buried in the file's labyrinthine code. Some called it a hoax, but others, men with hollow eyes who studied forbidden symbols, called it something far worse, a map to the origin of a war that had not yet begun. The convoy arrived under moonless skies. Desert winds howled through jagged canyons, drowning the hum of diesel engines. Beneath a camouflage tarp, a sealed container held artifacts like none the world had ever seen. Discs carved from a metal that no metallurgist could classify. Tablets engraved with scenes of impossible machines, machines that breathed light and bled stars. The excavation crew, sworn to silence, unearthed a chamber that predated the Anasazi, the Maya, and the Sumerians by millennia. On its walls, a spiral of symbols identical to those in the ancient arrow file. As dawn broke, a black helicopter landed without warning. Men in gray suits emerged, agents whose badges bore no seal, whose weapons gleamed like knives of shadow. They took the artifacts, erased the site, and silenced the diggers. But in the dust and the hush of the canyon, one fragment escaped their grasp. A single metal shard, etched with coordinates far beyond this world. It found its way to an archaeologist named Dr. Ilara Vaughn, whose obsession with forbidden knowledge had already ruined her career and poisoned her dreams. Ilara sat alone in her crumbling New Mexico office when the shard arrived in an unmarked box. No note, no return address. She traced the glyphs under the dull glow of her desk lamp, her breath catching when she realized they matched petroglyphs she had once seen in the remote caves of Chaco Canyon, markings dismissed as fraud by her peers. As the clock ticked toward midnight, she felt the walls of her small office begin to shift, as if the shadows leaned closer to listen. 2 nights later, a knock rattled her door at 3:17 a.m. On her porch stood a man in a raincoat, his eyes hidden behind mirrored lenses. He introduced himself only as Langley, a ghost name as old as covert wars and coups d'états. He claimed to be a friend, but the way he held his hands betrayed the coiled tension of a predator. He asked for the shard. When she refused, he smiled and whispered that she was already part of Project Ancient Arrow, whether she liked it or not. Langley vanished into the night. But Ilara's home no longer felt like hers. She felt watched, hunted by an agency that officially denied it even existed. She fled to the desert with the shard in her bag, driving through pitch-black highways to the last place she remembered feeling safe, an abandoned observatory perched on a mesa where the sky burned with 1,000,000 cold suns. There she planned to decode the shard's final message. In the observatory's control room, Ilara spread out old maps, her notes, and the stolen fragment beneath the skeletal frame of a rusted telescope. She traced the spiral of symbols over and over until the lines blurred into a vortex. Then she saw it. Hidden within the etchings was a pattern of constellations, but they did not match any known sky. The coordinates pointed not to a place on Earth, but to a place beyond it, a sector of the Orion arm where radio silence has long cloaked whispers of ancient machines. As Ilera recorded her findings, her satellite phone crackled to life. A voice, metallic and hollow, recited a single phrase in a dead language she somehow understood. The arrow flies backward. She stared into the cracked lens of the telescope, her mind fracturing as she imagined the impossible. A message sent backward through time, from a civilization that knew humanity's darkest secret, that we are not the architects of our own destiny. Outside the observatory, headlights appeared on the winding desert road. 3 black SUVs, their engines idling like beasts scenting prey. Ilara snatched the shard, her breath frosting in the stale night air. She realized that if they caught her now, the knowledge would vanish forever, swallowed into an archive no whistleblower would ever find. She fled into the canyon's maze of ancient trails, the ghost of the arrow guiding her steps towards something buried deeper than bone. She stumbled into a crevice where ancient petroglyphs shimmered under the moonlight, spirals, arrows, and figures that seemed to shift when she looked away. The metal shard in her pocket grew warm, pulsing like a heartbeat that was not hers. From the shadows she felt eyes, watchers older than governments, older than time. Somewhere beyond the rocks, the agent's footsteps echoed closer, boots crushing the dust of forgotten empires. As she pressed her back against the stone, she heard a whisper in the wind. No language, no voice, just a presence that folded her fear into something more dangerous, purpose. She closed her eyes and let the symbols speak. They told her of gateways that sleep beneath the earth, of machines that drink starlight, of a war yet to come, a war the NSA has sworn to wage in secret, not just against her, but against a truth that could fracture the world. Somewhere above her, a drone's red eye flickered in the darkness, scanning for heat signatures. She could run no further into the canyon's throat. With trembling hands, she pressed the shard against the glyphs on the cave wall. Light flared, a cold, silvery glow that swallowed the stone, the sand, and her breath. She felt herself falling forward through a tunnel that was not space and not time, but something older than both. The last thing she heard before the desert night closed in was the sound of boots sliding on gravel, agents barking orders into radios that could not reach where she was going. Then there was only the hum, the spiral, and the sense that somewhere in the dark the ancient arrow had found its mark. And it was her. In the heart of the labyrinth the Minotaur waits for no man. Ilara fell through darkness that was not empty but brimming with echoes, whispers that curled like smoke through the corridors of her mind. She felt no wind, no pull of gravity, only the shifting sensation of sliding between the walls of an ancient dream. When her feet touched solid ground, she opened her eyes to a cavern pulsing with cold blue light. The symbols from the shard now glowed along the walls, moving as if alive. She stepped forward, her boots crunching on crystalline dust. The chamber stretched beyond sight, filled with pillars of obsidian etched in the same swirling script. At the center stood an archway, a ring of stone humming with an energy she felt in her bones. She knew without knowing how that this was a gateway, a door carved by a civilization whose ruins lay buried beneath every myth humanity ever told itself. Her hand hovered over the arch. A low vibration coursed through her fingertips, an invitation or a warning. She thought of Langley, of the men in black SUVs, of the secret war waged in the shadows of satellite grids and black budgets. She thought of the future that waited, coiled like a serpent in the ruins of the past. She stepped through. On the other side, the world was not a world at all, but a vast dome of shifting light. She stood on a platform that seemed to float above a sea of fractured images, civilizations rising and falling in spirals of fire and stone. She saw ziggurats swallowed by sand, cities of glass devoured by vines, and skies filled with machines that drifted like living constellations. It was as if time itself had been laid bare, unspooled for her alone. A figure emerged from the swirling haze, tall, robed, its face hidden beneath a mask of hammered bronze. It raised a hand in greeting, or perhaps command. Words did not pass between them, but meaning did. She knew then that this was not a ghost but a guardian, one of the architects of the ancient arrow. Its voice slipped directly into her mind, like a river beneath ice. Ilara's thoughts flooded with questions. Why her? What war? Why bury these gateways beneath centuries of dust and blood? The guardian answered only with visions. Fragments of a timeline in which humanity discovered technologies meant to uplift them, machines that could bend light into energy, decode the mind, and breach the cage of mortality. But each time these secrets were stolen, hoarded, twisted by those who fed on fear. She saw the NSA's shadow war stretching backward through time. Black projects that seeded disinformation, silenced visionaries, buried artifacts beneath false narratives. And yet, again and again, the ancient arrow returned, hidden in symbols, myths, and the DNA of the restless few who could not stop asking dangerous questions. She stumbled backward as the visions faded. The guardian held out an arm, pointing toward a path that spiraled down into the dome's core. She knew instinctively that if she walked that path, she would not return the same. Her mind reeled. Somewhere above this place, Langley and his shadows would be searching the canyon's black mouth, speaking her name into radios tuned to frequencies that could never find her now. With each step down the spiral, the images around her shifted. An ancient library filled with crystalline tablets, spheres that hovered and pulsed with a hidden heartbeat, a map of the stars overlaid with codes she could almost decipher. At the base of the spiral lay a pedestal, and atop it a second shard larger than the one she carried. Its surface shimmered with the same living script, waiting for her touch. She placed the first shard beside the second. The symbols merged in a cascade of silver light, projecting a lattice of glyphs into the chamber. The guardian stepped back into the haze, dissolving like mist. Alone, Ilara watched as the lattice unfolded into a series of coordinates. This time they pointed not to the stars, but deep beneath the Earth's crust, far from the desert. Her breath caught when she realized the location. Beneath the frozen wastes of Antarctica. Her mind raced. Rumors of Nazi expeditions, Cold War bases, buried craft no nation would claim. Now the truth, the final vault of the ancient arrow, the source of a technology so profound that entire wars had been fought to keep its existence locked in myth. The NSA's secret war was not just to bury this knowledge, but to keep humanity chained to a single withering timeline. A distant rumble shivered through the chamber. Somewhere far above, she could sense the agents breaching the canyon's hidden passage. Their technology was crude compared to the architecture that surrounded her, but their hunger was relentless. They would follow her through this place if they could. She had to move. This gate would not stay open forever. She took the fused shard in her hand. The platform began to retract, lifting her back toward the archway. She could feel the hum of the gateway shifting, recalibrating. As the cavern's walls closed in, she glimpsed a fleeting figure, a second guardian, its mask cracked and eyes like cold embers, watching from the shadows. It raised a single finger to where its lips would be if it were human. The archway flared. Light swallowed her again, another fall through the spiraling corridor of memory and possibility. Her pulse roared in her ears. Somewhere in the dark she clutched the coordinates that might rewrite the story of her species, but even as she felt herself slip back toward the world above, she wondered. Was she the arrow, or merely its target? As the cave's mouth reformed around her, a beam of cold dawnlight speared through the rocks. She stumbled into it, gasping for air, the canyon echoing with the distant bark of orders and the heavy tread of boots on stone. The SUVs were gone, replaced by black transports with strange markings, unfamiliar even to her eyes. These were not NSA. These were something older, hidden beneath 100 layers of forgotten acronyms. And standing between her and freedom, framed by the rising sun, was Langley. But now his mirrored lenses were gone, revealing eyes that flickered with an inhuman light. He smiled. Cold, patient, and very certain that she would not leave this place alive with what she knew. In the end, all arrows returned to the bow. Langley stepped forward, his boots stirring the ancient dust of the canyon floor. The early light caught the edges of his irises, and for an instant they seemed to refract like polished crystal fractured windows into something that had shed its humanity long ago. Ilara clutched the fused shard tight against her chest, feeling its warmth pulse in time with her racing heart. He spoke softly, his voice uncoiling like smoke in the cold desert air. "You were never meant to see this place, Dr. Vaughn. You were never meant to hold what you now hold." His eyes drifted to the shard, and in that instant she realized he wasn't looking at the metal, he was listening to it. The symbols beneath her fingers shifted, almost alive, as if whispering to their old master. She took a step back, boots scraping stone. Behind Langley, more figures emerged from the canyon's dark maw, men and women in black tactical suits, but none bore insignia. Their faces were pale and strangely calm, pupils dilated as if they stared at a world she could not see. Langley lifted a hand and they froze, statues carved from the void. "Give it to me, Ilara," he said, and for the first time her name sounded wrong in his mouth, like a word spoken by a throat not made to form it. "You don't know what you carry. You don't know who waits for you on the other side of this betrayal." She almost laughed. "Betrayal? Of who?" The canyon wind rose behind her, flinging sand and whispers through the air. She could feel the gate still humming far beneath the rocks, a secret artery feeding her courage. Langley's smile never touched his eyes. He stepped closer. "Betrayal of your species, Doctor. Do you really think this knowledge frees you? Do you think it frees them?" He gestured skyward, to the empty dawn where satellites wheeled in their cold orbits. "There are patterns older than nations, shapes that bind the mind, the flesh, the time itself. You are not strong enough to sever them." Somewhere deep in her mind, a voice, a memory of the Guardian, rose like a ripple across dark water. The war was never against you, it was for you. She realized then that every step had been guided. The messages, the shard, the visions, she had not stumbled into them, she had been chosen. Or shaped. Ilara tightened her grip on the shard. She felt its pulse quicken in her palm. Langley tilted his head slightly, and for an instant she saw the shimmer beneath his skin, lines of circuitry or veins of living light. He was not the only predator here. The canyon itself seemed to lean closer, ancient stones echoing with voices that had once sung civilizations into being. She turned and ran. The tactical team sprang into motion, boots pounding rock and gravel in perfect unison. She vaulted over a jagged ledge, sliding down a steep incline where ancient petroglyphs flashed past her in a blur. Every symbol seemed to flicker in recognition as she passed. Spirals, arrows, open eyes carved by hands who had glimpsed what she now carried. She hit the canyon floor hard, knees buckling, the shard cutting into her palm as she scrambled to her feet. Ahead, a narrow fissure split the rock, a path so tight it barely breathed. She dove into it, the darkness swallowing her heartbeat. Behind her, the footfalls fell silent, replaced by a low hum. Machines waking beneath human skin. She stumbled through the crack until it widened into a hidden grotto, a hollow where water dripped from ancient veins. The walls were covered in handprints, layered for centuries, each generation leaving its mark before vanishing into dust. She pressed her palm, bloody and warm, against the stone. The shard pulsed. The wall shivered. Light split the rock, a vertical seam that widened just enough to admit her. She fell through, landing on a cold metal floor. This was no natural cave. Beneath the canyon lay an installation that had slumbered for millennia. The air tasted sterile, humming with a faint ozone tang that spoke of machinery older than iron, older than words. She rose, staring at rows of crystalline panels lining the walls, each etched with spirals and symbols that mirrored the shard's living script. The panels flickered to life as she passed, casting ghost light across her face. Somewhere far above, she heard muffled voices. Langley and his legion, searching the rock for a path they would not find in time. At the far end of the chamber, a dais rose from the floor. Suspended above it, a sphere hovered, spinning slowly. Within its surface danced shifting star fields, flickering coordinates, pulses of coded light that throbbed in rhythm with the shard in her hand. She stepped forward, breath trembling. This was it. This was what the Guardians had hidden in stone and myth, an archive, a seed vault of futures unclaimed. She raised the shard, and the sphere unfolded like a blooming flower, revealing a single crystalline key nested at its heart. She reached out, hesitation trembling in her fingertips. The moment her skin brushed the key, the chamber shuddered. Symbols exploded across the walls. The air vibrated with a low, thrumming chant, a language spoken by metal and memory. Outside, the rock split in a thunderous roar. A cascade of boulders buried the hidden entrance behind her. She heard distant shouts, the crackle of radios overtaken by static. She knew Langley would come, that the hunt would not stop until the last secret was buried again, or unleashed. As the sphere's light engulfed her, she saw visions not of what was, but what could be. Cities grown from living stone, skies seeded with ships that drank the sun, children unbound from the iron shackles of fear. But behind it all, a shadow, an echo of the same serpent coiled around every attempt to break free. The key glowed brighter, searing her palm with a brand she could not see but felt in every nerve. She heard the Guardians' voices merging into one. "You are the arrow, fly true," and then the world vanished in a rush of silver light and ancient thunder, hurling her toward a place that no map, no agency, no hidden empire could follow. Yet, the future flees the cage when the arrow strikes the lock. The silver storm faded, leaving Elara standing on an endless plain of obsidian glass. The sky above her churned with bruised clouds that pulsed with veins of emerald lightning. Beneath her boots, the glass rippled with every heartbeat, as if the plain itself were alive and dreaming her presence into being. Far in the distance, monoliths rose from the glass, colossal spires etched with the same living spirals that marked the shards. Each tower hummed, vibrating a chord she felt deep in her ribs. This was no earthly place, no hidden vault beneath Antarctica's frozen tombs. She had stepped into a construct, part machine, part memory, an ark built to store what the world was never meant to forget. She turned, clutching the crystalline key. Its light seeped into her veins, each pulse aligning her thoughts with something vast and patient that had waited for this reunion across forgotten centuries. The Guardians had not buried the arrow, they had hidden it in plain sight. Inside every myth that whispered of gates, underworlds, and stairways to the stars, a shape moved among the monoliths. Tall, robed figures emerged, 3, then 5, then dozens, each mask unique, forged from metals that caught the storm's green fire. They formed a silent circle around her. When they spoke, they did not move their lips, but the air trembled with their wordless chant. One stepped forward, its mask split down the center with a seam of blue flame. In its outstretched palm lay a sphere of light orbiting shards of memory. Images of the Earth she had left behind, satellites drifting like parasites, encrypted signals weaving a cage of thought, secret wars waged not with bombs but with forgotten truths. She saw Langley's face flicker among the shards, his eyes glassy with the cold logic of something older than the NSA, older than the acronyms buried in 3-letter graves. He was not merely a man but a vessel for the same machine hunger that had always stalked humanity's steps, rewriting futures before they could take root. The Guardian's voice poured into her mind like molten metal. "You stand at the threshold of the second gate. You carry the seed. The war is not to come, it is already lost, unless you carry it forward." She wanted to speak, to ask what she must do, but the words tasted like ash. The storm overhead split wide, revealing a wound of starlight so vast it made her knees buckle. Through it, she glimpsed cities floating in the void, machines that thought, dreamed, whispered promises in the tongues of dying stars. The circle of guardians shifted, each mask turning toward her in silent judgment. You were chosen because you remember, because you question, because you run not away, but toward. She felt the weight of every civilization that had dared to reach beyond its cage. Atlantis, Mu, the ancient architects who etched their warnings into the stones of Chaco Canyon, the temples beneath the ice, the spirals beneath the skin of the earth. She stepped forward, holding the crystalline key above her head. The monoliths answered with a tremor that cracked the obsidian plain. Fractures of light spread beneath her feet, revealing glimpses of a hidden structure. An engine, sleeping, waiting for the final cipher to unlock its pulse. Far away, she felt Langley, his presence vibrating across the dark lattice of the world she had left behind. He would follow her. He would bend the hunt through any gate she opened. But he did not know what waited beyond this threshold. He did not know that once the arrow was loosed, it could not be called back. The guardians raised their arms. Light erupted from the monoliths, converging on the key in her grasp. She felt her bones turn to flame, her mind fragment into 1,000 mirrored thoughts. Time folded backward and forward, showing her children unborn and ancestors whose bones fed the roots of the oldest forests. A voice echoed within her chest, her own voice, older, resolute. Carry it forward, break the spiral, rewrite the arrow's flight. The ground cracked, the plain roared. The starlight above funneled downward like a river of burning silver. Somewhere far behind this moment, in the hidden bunkers beneath Fort Meade, alarms would shriek. Satellites would twitch in their orbits, listening for signals that could not be translated. Langley's eyes would flicker, glass shattering into the reflection of something that could not be controlled. You do not end the labyrinth, you become its path. As the storm consumed her, Elara felt the shards dissolve into her blood keys, seeds, spirals of code that no lock could contain. She fell forward into the fracture, into a world waiting to remember what it once was. And behind her, far away, the hunter's boots scraped stone in the empty canyon, calling her name into an echo that would never answer. And the arrow flies on.